So could you tell me how began the big adventure of collaboration between Basquiat and Warhol?
C'était un peu une
In English.
It was kind of a prolongation of something else. When Basquiat was in the winter of 1983-1984 in St. Moritz for Christmas, staying with us, we started to speak about collaborations in general, because in the house I had a couple of collaborations hanging, and I always had the idea already since a little time to ask Andy Warhol with one or two other artists to make collaborations, a commission I would do, because I was Warhol's art dealer as well, and Basquiat. So I asked Basquiat, would you like to do collaborations with Andy Warhol and another artist, maybe in the way of like the Cadavre Exquis
of the Surrealist?
Which the Surrealist did, which is a children's play, which you did as well, where you fold a piece of paper and then one paints the face and the other the tummy and the rest the feet, and then one opens it and looks how it is, so that each one. So he immediately said, yes, of course, let's do that.
What year was it?
Because he was in the winter of 83-84, and Basquiat. But I had two other artists' collaborations hanging in the house, one by Danon Tocqueville and one by Niki de Saint-Phal, Jean Tinguely and Daniel Spurry, trois des nouveaux réalistes qui ont ensemble.
In English.
Three of the new realists, which together made in 1961 a collaboration. They're signed in front with all three names, which I bought from Spurry in 1965 or so, and which I always kept and was hanging somewhere in the house. And Basquiat, of course, who loved Warhol because of his art and his personality and everything he did, and his fame, of course, as well. And he wanted to become a star as well, and he knew exactly he had the potential for that. He said immediately, of course, I would love to do that with Andy and the third artist, and we decided that we would ask Clemente, which was another artist I was representing through my gallery, and I know he knew him because he was living practically around the corner where Basquiat had his home at the time as well.
And so how did Warhol reacted?
He immediately agreed to do it, but I was Warhol's dealer since a long time, and he did many things for me. He did a children's exhibition for small children with small paintings, where the people had to go down on their knees to see it just 2 years before, and many other things, you know. I founded with him the Interview magazine. Was one I owned a quarter of it since the beginning. I was co-founding.
But did they know each other before?
A little bit, but not really, not officially. Only Basquiat trying to sell postcards on the street to him, or once in a restaurant. He entered a restaurant because he saw Basquiat and Henry Geldzahler going into that restaurant. He went in there. Schnabel shows that exaggerated completely in his movie. But that's what happened, but they never knew. So I had an agreement with Warhol that I could bring artists to his place and have them photographed by Warhol, and then I would choose a painting, or the artists would choose a painting to give to Warhol in exchange for the portrait. But I never, you know, I did it. I bought not many, but about a dozen. But the greatest artists of the young generation to him. That was very interesting for him to know them all very well, like that.
And so what was the first step?
Basquiat, when I said I would like to bring Basquiat this is all important for how the collaboration started. To tell that. When I said I would bring Basquiat next week for lunch at that and that time, he said, Basquiat, do you really think he's a really great artist? Because he didn't know his art at the time, only the personality, and he thought he's a little bit too fresh or so on the street offering cards or so. And I said, no, he has a great potential. He's a really great artist. you should meet him. So he came there and he made 20 or 30 photographs, and Basquiat asked Andy, could Bruno make a photograph of us two together, which I made a few with Warhol's camera. And then instead of staying there for lunch where he was invited with other people who were around, he said, I have to go somewhere, and took one of those photographs with him. And an hour or an hour and a half later, his assistant came running up the 5 blocks of the atelier because he couldn't enter a taxi. The painting was about 1.60 meters square, and it was still wet, and showed on the photograph Andy in this pose like he normally did, and Basquiat with his big black dreadlocks next to it together. And it was really a great masterpiece, which he did in an hour. And we laid it down on the floor, and the whole group of the few people which were invited there for lunch, a few, and the others which were which would be working at the factory, came around, and everybody said, and it looked really great. And Warhol, in his normal humorous way, said, oh, I'm jealous, I'm jealous, he's faster than me. Of course, he wasn't really jealous, but we could see he loved the painting a lot. It was great. It's a fantastic work. It will be shown in Paris in the show at the Louis Vuitton Foundation as well.
And so there was a communication of energy immediately.
Yes, and there I asked him also to make collaborations now with Basquiat and with Clemente after my rules. Each one had to make 5 works, 1 on paper, 3 on canvas without speaking with each other, and then giving 3 to one artist and 3 to the others, and then they would continue. They never were able to speak about size or about content of the paintings or anything, and it worked out. But of course and then on one of those paintings, which is called Alba's Breakfast, it hangs just around the corner here and will be shown in Paris as well.
So it was a real cadavre exquis, in fact.
Pardon?
It was a real cadavre exquis.
Not real.
No, but I mean, so they were not working together.
Yes, but it was closer, but also it was maybe less a direct exchange. Les quatre mains. No. Then on one of those paintings, Warhol painted 2 images: a General Electric sign and a washing machine. And in the old style, like he painted when he was painting by hand at the beginning of his career as an artist in 1982. He looked very the same style, and Basquiat said, it's fantastic, he still can paint. And he stopped painting 23 years ago and made only serigraphy because he wanted to be a machine. And he didn't want to give a meaning to the works he do, because the meaning is what he shows. But it's not neither positive nor negative, just without the content.
But together, they never did together some work at the same time.
Only later, then, yes. Then they did for in a year and a half, they did something like 150 paintings together.
150?
About 70 or 80 large canvases. Yes, you see a large part of them, all the great ones.
Yes, so first step was an adaptation of
It was a show which I did at the end of '84 in Zurich in my gallery of collaborations, Warhol, Clemente and Basquiat together. And when Basquiat saw that, he said to me, oh, look, he paints so well, I will try to convince him to start painting again. And immediately they started to painting at 4 hands on thing, and Basquiat was helpful, invented Warhol to start him, or convinced him to start painting by hand, and Warhol kind of rejuvenated his whole style, because his late style in America was not so. Many of the critics were very
negative, yeah.
Because they didn't understand that he said commerce is a great thing. They did not understand, and still today a lot of critics don't understand that Warhol never makes a critic to what he when he paints. Even when in his disaster paintings, which is his greatest series, and for me the greatest series somebody did in the second part of the century, like the Cubist paintings, which Picasso and Braque did together, I think is the most important series, which made more influence than anything else in the first period. It was an influence till the abstract expressionists, so later on as a starting point, and Warhol is still today a big starting point on all the young artists, not all, but many of the young artists.
Of course.
And if they ask Warhol, what does it mean that you do crosses or something religious? What meaning does this have? And Warhol says, my paintings have no meaning. Even the race riot, you know what the race riot is? You know, the
Yes.
policiers et des noirs
In the 60s.
with German shepherds were fighting. That was no critic of Warhol against, it was only what he saw on the headlines in a Monday morning of the famous newspaper, like for instance, a suicide person jumping out of a window, or a crazy car crash, or something like that. It was not a protest or a glorification of anything. It was no critic against consumerism, as people write all the time about Warhol.
Yeah, I
Warhol
think
was
it's a
only-
mistake. Yeah.
He tried to have art in a much more pure sense, only with no meaning. I think the meaning distracted from the image and from the great art piece he wanted to create. And he did
So
create.
when they collaborate, what's the influence on Warhol?
It was quite an influence, of course. He loved the way he painted, and he just thought he's another great artist. It's like, I don't know, Picasso would collaborate, I don't know, with Paul Klee. I mean, it's easy to say with Matisse, which he wouldn't have done, but he adored Klee a lot, Picasso.
Yeah.
Matisse he adored as well. He maybe didn't tell, but it's very obvious, of course.
But they were in competition. In the case
and
of
how?
Basquiat and
Of
Warhol,
course,
in the case of Basquiat and Warhol, there was no competition,
Absolutely.
which is great.
Yes.
It was a.
And
Did they have a real friendship?
it was a real friendship, no sexual friendship or anything like that.
No, was it friendship?
But it was a great friendship among each other. But when after I bought the first group of 26 paintings from them, and I bought all the others later on as well, Warhol told me, this time I think we should show them first in New York, not in your gallery in Zurich, where very few people see it compared to New York. So I was looking for a gallery. So Tony Schofrazi was the only gallery I would know which had a large room, which doesn't do he lives from a little bit from hand to mouth, as we say, impulsively. He shows
Yes.
works not to a year before, so he had free time, and Warhol said he would prefer to show this downtown, not uptown, where the lively art is growing with all these young promising artists. There he would like to show it. So when I asked Tony Schofrazi that I could lend him 16 paintings of that first group, he of course was full of joy and did it.
What year was it?
It was in 1965, 85, I think, and the critics were not good at all. Like almost 90% of every show I ever did in my life, the critics were bad, and mostly we didn't sell anything. I'm used to that, and I thought it's good for an artist that he's not only acclaimed and starts to producing the same thing again and finally copies himself. That's very bad for an artist. It should be still in a fighting spirit. And Yvonne Rainer, a colleague of you from the New York Times, wrote that Basquiat is a mascot of Warhol or something like that.
Wow.
And Warhol took advantage of him, and now he's an art mascot. And so Basquiat, who thought he would get glorification through working with his famous Warhol, did not like that very much and stopped going to continue to work. But they did so much together. But they never broke up their friendship, not at all.
So
they
so
saw
they
each other all
stopped.
the time and went out for dinner.
What year did they stop the collaboration?
They painted about 1.5 years on it. in 1984 and 95. And end of 83, I think, and 84. Probably of end of 84. I don't remember exactly when it was.
But it lasts like 2 years or 1 year?
It lasts a year or a little bit more. A year and a few months.
And
maybe.
during these years, they produced more than 100 work.
Yes, some small ones as well. Large ones like the one you see behind us, which are not the largest. The largest is another group of about 10, 12, which are, the biggest is like 11 meters long and 3 meters high. And the second is one we have here next door, which is 8.5 meters high and 2.5 meters high. And the most one, and a few of the greatest are 3 by 4 meters. And this is like 2 by 3 meters about. Like those, they must have made 50.
And you bought all of them, all the collaboration?
All of the ones Warhol wanted to sell, and all of the ones they wanted to sell. So, but they let me choose 25 and gave me one as a free gift at the time. No, I paid for all their stretchers, that cost much more than the paintings cost. They cost nothing at the beginning compared to today. All the works as well, or especially Basquiat's work at the beginning, they costed $1,000 or $800.
And for years and years, the market wasn't fair with this collaboration.
No, but every now and then one brought like 10 million or so, exceptionally. But you could, if you're lucky, you could buy on auction one for 2 or 3 million, which is also very great, which is a lot of money compared to what they cost when they would have bought it at the first show. There they cost $15,000 up to about 30,000 or 25.
No, but when one thinks that two of the great masters of 20th century collaborate,
yes.
And you have the signature of two great people on the same painting.
And not only the signature, the result is astonishingly great. It's fantastic if you see it. If you just go with it and think, oh, that doesn't make sense.
No, there's a mariage which is very special.
A lot of people are not self-confident of their own taste, or maybe don't have a great taste, or are not curious enough to accept something new, which is that they think, oh, this is now I don't buy a Warhol, but I also don't buy a Basquiat. I buy some kind of Missgeburt, a bad birth baby, which it doesn't work, but it does work. Most of their works work greatly.
And what do you think
today enough people today realize that.
And what do you think Warhol brought to Basquiat in his paintings?
His style, his great style of painting himself. I mean, it's very difficult to say. What do you think is the great thing in Picasso? Or in,
no.
In
what I want to say is that when you have someone who is recognized as Warhol, and you have a younger artist,
he brought Warhol images in it, which he started often with, and Basquiat then came in as a second, or the other way around. But he infused his own style and his own ideas of images in close with Basquiat's great, powerful. Involved painting energy, where also mostly black faces, the black person intruding in that are here. Here is a big model. When I saw it first, I did not know what this is, Arm & Hammer. I thought it's like some socialized side, but it's the baking soda. It's which in America is very well known. Who brings up the muscle? He brings up the cake. But as a metal, and Basquiat didn't want to destroy it or paint it over this time. Often he painted over, but here he painted another metal, very, very modest, a small 2-cent piece or so with a black face himself, and he wrote 2 cents on it. What does it written? No, side view he wrote on it. The side view of a coin.
Merci.
De rien, c'était un plaisir.